when I was a kid, I would come to the Final Four with my dad. One of us would get to go per year. And I sat up there, and this is what I said before I left. I said, when I was a kid, I listened to Roy Williams and Guy Lewis. I listened to Eddie Sutton and Jerry Tarkanian and all these other legendary basketball coaches, Lefty Driesell, give presentations on an overhead projector. You guys remember what an overhead projector is? Right? It's exactly what you think it is. It's like a lit-up screen where you can either draw on it or you have this kind of thin sheath, and you write on the thin sheath, and then it's transparent, and then it projects it up onto a screen, and they would draw X's and O's and use the lane and show you different ways in which you played offense and defense. When I was a kid, college basketball's convention, which is what goes on at the Final Four, it's the national convention for basketball coaches. It was about basketball, and all it's about now is money. Right? That's the reality of it. That's the reality of it. And the greed over money, and what we've instilled on our kids, as it's now our generation, my age people are running the world, right? And suing the NCAA for more money, because it's like this is a new concept that schools make money off their students. Of course, they make money off all their students, not just their student athletes. And it's not to say that student athletes don't deserve some. I always thought that it was pretty awesome to get a scholarship. Those things are harder to get than ever before. They're more expensive than ever before, more valuable than ever before. Should they have given them spending money? Sure. Do we think that would have stopped this legislation? No, because greed is not good. Greed is striking at the core of what's going on in collegiate sports, the professionalization of something that was amateur for so long. Here's Jim Nance, of course, legendary voice of the NCAA tournament. This is his first year not calling the field. Here's Jim Nance. He was on with Dan Patrick earlier today.
My concern on your question is future college basketball. That may not live, as we know it, another 500 years. It may not live another 15 years because the portal and the NIL, it's difficult. I don't want to paint it doom and gloom. I don't want to say it's about to be extinct. It's not going to be. But what we knew it as, what we grew up with, that model doesn't exist anymore. And some people have a real problem with that.
Yeah, I think the issue with how Jim put it is he didn't, and he's he's always been the voice of something. Is he didn't say if he had a problem with it. He had a problem with it. I think the problems go hand in hand. Right? The problems go hand in hand, and the problem with the transfer portal isn't the portal itself. It isn't that you can put yourself in a transfer portal and people like myself can go and look at a list of players and decide who they want. The problem is that you can transfer without any sort of recourse. And if you draw up a contract that has a buyout in it or a non-compete clause, previous to now, they've been able to go and pretty much any contract can be made null and void. So, listen, I understand that the woe is me. We went from people lying, and when I say lying, I mean lying, saying college student athletes are going hungry. They're going to bed hungry. To guys reportedly making $2 to $3 million to play college basketball for 31 games plus a tournament. There's a wide span in the middle between those two, and we have yet to be able to land on that. At the end of it, these are four great teams, and we should be focusing on the actual basketball and the coaching. But unfortunately, money can ruin everything. College basketball was never pure. Okay? It was never, white as the driven snow. But it was not polluted like it is now. Now it went from kind of off-white, sort of an ecru, mother of pearl, to now just this kind of gray, mucky mud, especially at the top level. My level, it's a little different. Yes, there is money, but it's I feel like it's of the reasonable level, and it's just really for support. So you have, you're not broke in college, although, kids spend money anyway, so they go broke in college. Doesn't really matter how much you give them. But, it's when you have to list 2 or 3 previous schools for players, and when you're talking about that player, and those 2 or 3 previous schools are their colleges, let alone the 3 or 4 high schools, like, we got a problem. We got a problem. But the train keeps going down the station. I'm not really sure. I mean, I know how you fix it. I just don't know if, the issue is that you have state judges that are fanboys or fangirls. And so they strike down any sort of legislation which should stick. And I think the reason the NCAA hired Charlie Baker to be their president is because he's been in Washington, connections in Washington, and the only real way to get this thing done is to get what's it called, Jay Stu, when you have when you're it's like legislation proof. I forget the term. I'm blanking on it right now.
Immunization?
Huh?
Immunity?
It's immunity, but it's there's a different word for it. Gosh golly. I'll think of it. Antitrust stuff. Antitrust. Once it gets some antitrust legislation passed, then it becomes unassailable by lawsuit. And until that happens, we're going to be stuck in this waiting game.